Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Do Not Picture Today podcast. I am Hannah Mulhern. I'm here with two of my very lovely Hood to Coast teammates.
That's me,
Who are
and
you?
Wesley.
Who is you? Who are you?
I'm Reuben Mulhern, husband of podcast host Hannah Mulhern.
Nice.
And I am Wesley Upton, friend of husband of Hannah's podcast host.
So eloquently said, Wesley. Wesley Jean, to be specific. I think that's you in my contact as well. You're not Wesley, you're Wesley Jean.
Probably so.
You
Yeah.
do have a last name too. Hannah gives lots of solid intros on her guests, so I'll do Wesley here.
Okay.
So Wes is a bachelor of science in exercise science. He is a husband. Hey, this is great. This is great. Let me keep going. He is a husband. He is a triathlete. He's a half Ironman. He is soon to be a full Ironman. He is a fitness enthusiast, podcast enthusiast, tennis player, runner, biker, swimmer, man.
Wow. That was impressive.
I was practicing it before we were starting.
Awesome.
Were you really?
I was thinking about Wes's intro because
Aw.
she always does intros for people.
I do.
That was
great. Well done.
Thanks, Rube.
Yeah. So the topic of this podcast is to cover. We recently did Hood to Coast. Oh, what was it? About a week ago? Nice. Look at that medal. So lovely on you. But wanted to get together after the Hood to Coast and kind of have a recap episode touching upon things that were learning lessons, best moments, worst moments, essential items we had, things we didn't have. And yeah, just kind of wanted to recap the Hood to Coast race because it's an annual race that starts on Mount Hood in Oregon, and it's 198 miles, and you run with your team from 8 to 12 people all the way to the Seaside coast. So Wes was on that team. Rubes, my husband, was on that team. We had also had quite a few other members on our team as well. But this is kind of talk about that timeline and experience of the Hood to Coast. So Wesley, Jean, Upton, I will hand it over to you first. So talk to me about your Hood to Coast experience. And as you know, Hood to Coast, because you are a true Oregonian, Oregon human.
Yes, I am all those things. Hood to Coast has been on my bucket list for a long time. Ever since I was a little kid, I knew about the race. My mom did it a number of years when I was really young, and it was always a super epic like party at the beach. My dad would drive me and my siblings down to see my mom finish, and so that was something that I always knew about. My mom it was always a big deal for her. I didn't really know anything about the race until I got a little bit older about the actual logistics, and this just kind of fell into my lap. It was brought to my attention. We were trying to get a team together, and I jumped on it. I said, "Yeah, I'm training for other stuff right now. I feel like I'll be able to do it in a respectable way." And some of my best friends on board as well. So yeah, I just absolutely wanted to do this, and it was different than I expected overall. It was super, super fun, and I'm looking back on it fondly, but it was way more of a logistical challenge, and the fitness part I kind of expected was kind of on par, the actual running, but everything else was way harder than I thought it was going to be.
was the running? Yeah, because similarly, I was like, oh yeah, like you're gonna like how many times during a week do you push yourself on a run? Like
Right.
So like yeah, you're used to that,
Yeah.
and there was so much that we just like didn't know going in.
Yeah. I think, like you said, I'm used to pushing myself. I didn't have any trouble. I knew it would be hard at some point running because it was a little more mileage than I usually do, and it's always tough to get stiff and then get back out there when you're crammed in a car. But it's an ordeal. I mean, not just the setup, the prep involved, and I know you guys did a lot of that, which was awesome. Thankfully, I didn't have to think about it too much. I was thinking more about like getting people housed and things, but the prep is intense, and then the just making sure everyone knows where they're going and getting people there at the right times, having teams ready when your runner's done. That happened a lot faster than I thought it would. Like,
I thought there was going to be a lot more sitting around.
yeah, there's
honestly, I thought there was going to be like 3-hour periods where you're just like we brought a hacky sack because we were like, oh, we have a lot of time to like, you see that, like shoot the shit and kick the hacky sack, but we didn't even have time for that. Really, we were going like the entire time.
Yeah, very little downtime. And to your point, I know if you do the full 12-person team, there is a little bit more downtime for one van. You're always in the same van, and you theoretically, depending on how fast your runners are, you should have a 4-hour period about that you're not running.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, definitely, I felt like even when you weren't running, there was this kind of like your head was spinning a little bit. Like, what are we supposed to be doing next? What's our next checkpoint? Where are we supposed to be? What are the other teams doing? So that part was a little bit surprising to me. That was a bit different.
Yeah, and for folks who don't know Hood to Coast, I think we know it because we were, it was brought to our attention, I think last year. So we had to do a bit of research and kind of understand the race. But like I touched on earlier, you start on Mount Hood about halfway up, like a lodge, and based upon your team's estimated duration to complete the 198 miles is when you start. So we started Friday morning, late morning, but there were some teams that started at like 4 a.m. And so you start the relay dependent upon your estimated completion time. And from there, that's kind of where your race starts. So we started at 11:40 on Friday. And then I think we finished at like 4 p.m., 3 p.m. on Saturday in Seaside. Because I think it took us like 27 hours to finish.
Yep.
So from that start point to that end point, you're pretty much in a go, go, go mode. Like, and you guys bring up a good point because it wasn't a lot of sitting around. There was like tents in some instances, like in some parking lots, but I think those weren't really used by teams that didn't have 12 people because it was, let me run, let me get in the car, let us drive, let me sit for a minute, and then we go to the next spot, You're right, it wasn't a lot of sitting still.
Yeah. Well, we had to deal with a little bit of adversity, but it was fun.
It was fun. I think honestly though, because Wes, you're in Oregon, obviously you live there. Yeah. We got hit with snow up at the start point, which was crazy. Because we call them vans. We rented a truck because by the time we were able to get all the rentals, trucks what were left, and we made it work. It was a super cool truck, by the way.
That was cool. I like the truck.
That was a great truck. We named her Cece, or Cher, excuse me, because she's a Chevrolet.
Yes.
Cher. By the time we got up to that mountain, it was snowing. And so I remember looking at our team, and there was like snowflakes in our eyelashes. And to be like, we're about to... Like, it was just kind of like a surreal moment. Like, are you shitting me? It's August, number one.
Was it, by the time you reached the second leg, was it still snowing though or
no? Because we were down the mountain by that point. The first leg was just straight down.
So what was the elevation at the top? Is it 6,000? Is it 55?
Something like that.
I don't know, but it was enough where you started and ended. I'm sure you could feel that elevation difference.
Yeah.
Timberline Lodge is exactly 6,000.
6,000, yeah. So I will say, as an Oregonian, that is extremely uncommon for it to be snowing in August, even at that elevation. Like that, it never happens. I don't know about the history of the race. I'd imagine that's one of maybe a handful of times they've seen snowflakes at all, maybe never. So that was kind of crazy, and it was pretty comical because Van 2 was at the bottom getting ready during that time, and we're getting all the updates from you guys who were already up the mountain, and Van 2 was just a bunch of Oregonians / Pacific Northwest people, and so we're just like, oh, why did we send all those SoCal? that SoCal van is just gonna be freezing up there. But I thought it made for kind of an interesting start. I also think it was fitting that you guys got the full experience. You got way up on the mountain.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah. It was cool because I don't think anyone from the car that we were in had been to Mount Hood. So, what were you going to say, baby?
No, I was just going to say it was a bummer that you couldn't actually see the mountain because it was so cloudy, but you guys still got to be up there.
We got to get a little bit of the experience, but it was cold. I had on like sweats. I had gloves. I had double sweatshirt, and I was like shaking. But
Yeah, it was like 35 or 36. So
it was cold.
It was cold.
yeah, cold
It was
enough for it
cold.
to snow, but not cold enough for the snow to stick, which is good because that would have actually thrown things off quite a bit.
Yeah. And so from that starting point, from 11:40 when the guns went off, we continued the race. And so logistic wise, back to the aspect of Mount Hood, if people don't know, you get assigned. If you have 12 people, you have 12 legs. If you have 8 people, you have 8 legs. We had 11 people, so we had 11 legs to start with. And so from that point, we had 11, right?
10, which became 9.
10, my bad, 10. So we had 5 in one car and then 5 in the other car just for simplicity. And so we had legs 1 through 5 dedicated to truck 1 or van 1, and then 5 or 6 through 10 dedicated to van 2. And so it was kind of like, it was the relay in that regard, but where it got interesting was with the cars. And I kept referring to it as like leapfrog, because we would leapfrog each other with the cars. Like you guys would take 6 to 10 and we would meet you at 10. And then we would do 10 to 16 or 10 to 15, then we meet you at 16. So there's a lot of like logistics aspect from that point. And then at one section, I think Wes, you came into our car, or we went into your car, depending upon the leg. The roads were so tiny that only one car could go.
Yeah.
And at one point, I don't know who, but someone got out of the car to meet the runner because we weren't going to get there in time.
Yeah.
I also did that.
That happened multiple times. Yeah. There was so much backing up especially when we got to the end, because the teams that had started at different times were now all of a sudden finishing at kind of like the same time.
Yeah.
So there was just massive backups at the last like couple of different legs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the logistics aspect, I think, of all relay races that I've heard of, this one might take the cake. Being that like, you had to organize it yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's just out of everyone's control is, that bottleneck is going to happen at some point because runners just naturally are going to catch up to others. But those roads that we were on out there just can't handle the traffic that this thing creates. I mean, this was tiny little like service roads that we're on. And what was it was 1,100 teams, something like over 10,000 athletes.
Yeah.
I think it was 1,050 teams, but then you think about each team has 2 cars, has up from 8 to 12 people.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I get why they had the restriction of like, okay, only this car, only one of your cars. So reload your people, send them off. Because I can't imagine having double the amount of vehicles on that road. There's absolutely no way. Yeah. And then also the cell reception. That was super critical.
Yeah, that was hard. I kind of forgot about that. On my side of things, like you two were in different vans for the whole time. My wife was here trying to communicate because she was helping coordinate, are people coming home, are people not?
Mm-hmm.
Our house is on the routes, kind of. And yeah, I think it was 18, 20 hour period where it was radio silent. Like there was no communication. No cell reception it was a long time during that race.
Can you imagine if we hadn't had our walkie-talkies? There's no way we would have finished the race without our walkie-talkies.
I think they were helpful. I don't know if they were deal breakers. Like I remember we heard, because what was the radius? 3 miles?
It was 3 miles, but just in terms of like, we could have had someone without a radio. We could have had someone just like standing somewhere and no one knowing.
Yeah, that's true. That's really that is true. Because I think that I don't know. It's all a blur. Because I mean, you don't sleep. I think I remember having a conversation at one point in the car, just being like, "Stay awake, stay awake, stay awake." And I remember just waking up and there's just drool, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like snap out of it. But you're not sleeping. People are like other race folks, and this kind of bleeds into our next topic. But like you just see people racing, and you just see them like yak in a bush because they're just like not sleeping. They're not eating. You have porta potties along the way where people go into the bathroom. It's not sexy. It's not by any means, but I think that's what makes it difficult is to see how people that know how to run. If you're like with a marathon, you have a start and you have an end. That's it. That's all I have to worry about. With this sort of shit, it's like logistics, car, gas, who's the next person. Like I remember we also met and we had like, okay, if we can't find our people, what do we do? I'm like, just stay at your leg. So I was at one point for like 20 minutes, just like, okay, I'm just going to stay at my leg, like waiting for a car. And you have to just hope that they are on their way because there wasn't any cell reception. But
Yeah. What were some things you guys learned before the race, maybe about Mount Hood or about the race or about something? And then what were some things that you learned during the race?
I'll let you start, Wesley.
So I'll let you guys kind of go on the before side. I don't think there's a lot that I learned beforehand. It was I kind of had a general knowledge of what the race was about and how it worked. But getting into it, I I knew about the lack of sleep, but I learned like quickly about how that can affect people and affects people in different ways. But like I know some people are able to sleep.
What are some different ways that lack of sleep affects people?
There's delirium, there's anger, there's I don't know, there's all sorts of things. And we saw it like it wasn't just our team, like seeing it around. Like you could tell at the end runners were getting like if they finished they didn't see their van, they were getting very angry, like where are my people? But that was one thing like I, I I'm usually able to sleep in cars, so I wasn't too worried about it. I slept like 15 minutes total. I think I was up 40 hours with 15 minutes of sleep, and I've never done that in my life. That is something I've never experienced. So, yeah, I was a little loopy at the end. That makes and it makes the logistics harder too, because now you're trying to like I don't know, your brain's not functioning as well as it should, and you're trying to figure out where's your team, where are you going, and yeah, got a little interesting. So that was the main thing I learned, I think, on the route, or just like as we raced it.
Yeah.
And also, I'll add one more. I learned that the race is set up for 12 people, and it's set up for 2 full vans of 6. Like all of the instructions, everything they give you, all the checkpoints, everything's meant to be a full van and a full van. So that in the future that would make it easier, I think, overall.
Yeah.
How did your body respond? Because I think the biggest thing for me was the lack of sleep. But I was curious. I think there's also something really difficult that you don't necessarily think about. Maybe it's different if you have different cars, but the running and then no cool down, getting in a car and then sitting in a car for like 4 hours.
Yeah, that was
How did
kind of
that go for
crazy.
you?
Well, so I'm a very stiff person in general, so I feel like that's usually how I feel when I start. But it was worse. Yeah, definitely. You get out and you are locked up. Like
Mhm.
the first multiple miles, you're like just trying to get your legs back. So that was interesting. But I think, yeah, for me that part wasn't a huge deal. I also compared to I think I had maybe the least mileage of anyone in our whole group. I was supposed to have way more, but when we switched things around, it just got like some of mine got taken. So the physical part I wasn't too shocked about. But yeah, the lack of sleep was crazy.
Yeah.
And like yeah, you just feel weird.
Yeah.
What about you, baby?
On what?
The sleep?
The sleep was a factor. It wasn't really a factor for the running. It was more a factor of like staying calm. Okay, we're going to do this next. We're going to do this next. Here's what I need to eat. There's just like one more thing to kind of like think about. Um, yeah, it just made logistics harder, I would say. And then like it made communicating with people harder because like the chipper people that were, normally like very nice, maybe were like in a salty mood or whatever. But no, what was I going to say on the, what I didn't expect, I didn't really think about was like, so when you think about like a marathon, right? Like when I've run a marathon, the start of the marathon, you have like all the energy of like, I'm racing, like, let's go. Like, and that lasts like a certain number of miles. And then eventually you kind of hit the point where you're like, oh my God, like this is like, but maybe it was due to my legs being slightly shorter. But like every time I started a leg, you felt that again. At least I did that. Like,
What,
hey,
the
it's
energy?
like the energy of like, it's the start of the race. Like, let's go, good energy. And so that was honestly like, it made the running a little bit easier because each time that I started again, it was like, okay, race mindset, restart, as opposed to like trying to run 26 miles all with that same like go, go, go mentality. So I thought that was cool. Yeah.
That's
But
that's an impressive mindset, Reuben. Nice.
thanks, Wes.
Yeah.
It helped that my legs were 4 miles the last couple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was good.
No, but in terms of like what you were saying and what we learned, like when we didn't have 12 people to start, there was no part of me that was like, oh, this is going to be hard. It was like, we'll run a little bit more. But then as soon as we like, the more and more that we planned, we're like, ooh, actually, if we don't have 12 people, it means this. Oh, and it means this. And then like you kind of knew all that going in. But then during the race, the biggest thing was that if you don't have 12 people, the breaks in between each band are smaller, because there's two less people to go before you're going again. And so the breaks weren't, each break was shorter and shorter as we were going. And also our team was faster than we thought they were going to be. So I think we kind of assumed that we were going to be slower at first, which again meant that we would have had more time in between.
That's true too.
But how many times did we reach an exchange point where like, okay, the person's ready, get out of the car. Like, it wasn't like, hey, we were waiting for much time.
Yeah. I mean, we did a really good job, I think, as we kept each other posted, which I will give us a major kudos for. We were an hour and a half, an hour 15 ahead of our like estimated time to completion. So that was super helpful for like, okay, you're smashing through your 4 hours. Like you put yourself as like 8-minute pace for 4 miles or hours. And now you're just racing at 7. So that's
what a sandbag.
Huh?
Reuben was sandbagging the whole time. He was blowing through his times.
Groups especially.
Everyone did.
We all were. I think you just did it with a little bit more pang than the rest of us. By the end of our 10, we went through all of our legs. It was like, whoa, we're an hour ahead of schedule. And then as we continued, we ended up being an hour and a half. But that was super cool. I was able to keep each other posted. Like, okay, we're an hour and a half earlier here, so get here earlier. Move here faster. Get to this person quicker. Because you're right, there wasn't a lot of times. Like there were other teams. I don't know if you saw this, Wes, but it was like they'd been waiting for their person for like 10 minutes to hand off their safety thing.
Yeah, I feel like we never waited that long at all.
No.
Like, oh, here they come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I made one of our teammates wait long, but I had to go to the bathroom so bad.
You got to do what you got to do.
I'm not going to shit on the route, so I think I did a disservice to everyone. But I think I was like, I heard our name get called out as I was going to the bathroom, and I'm like, okay, I just need 2 minutes.
Was there a least favorite moment for you guys during the race?
I think, so our van or truck one, we started, I think we had slightly different experiences than you guys, because it ended up being where we weren't able to like, we started the race, but we got the brunt of like right when it starts to become evening to morning. So I think from like 11 to 3 we were racing, which is really hard. And then I think at that moment where I was like, okay, I just did 2 legs and I have how many more to go? And I'm like, my legs are locked in your car. Like we didn't order, that's something we can add to the learning lesson to talk about later. But the car that we got didn't allow for leg room. So I'm 6'2", Rubes is 6'5", 6'6". And so you're in a car after running and your legs are locked. At that point where it was like, it became painful to sit. Yeah. But then you go back to Wes, your point of like, hey, if we had another person, I could maybe stretch out or maybe walk or.
It's almost like the running was more comfortable than
oh yeah.
I mean, honestly, when that other car was cramped, it was
a tiny car.
Especially when I got it in the second time when all of you were in it, like larger people. Van 2 had some small people that were just kind of curled up. Ooh, when you pack that thing, I mean, there was no room at all.
Yeah.
Because you also have to pack your food you're going to eat during the race. Because there's not like aid stations. There's exchanges where that's like you exchange with the next person coming in to run. But there's not like snacks and cookies and crackers and drinks. So you're self-sufficient or fulfilling, whatever.
Self-sufficient, yeah.
Yeah, so like water, snacks, change of clothes, baby wipe, like all of that sort of stuff you're packing. And then you have 5 people to a car, that's 5 suitcases. It does some great service benefit of having a larger vehicle.
And we saw a lot of large vehicles out there.
Oh,
they were doing great.
Vans.
That would be nice.
Like the
Sprint,
six-figure Mercedes Sprinter van.
Oh, those things were
surround
awesome.
Sound and like the pop top.
Those were cool.
All right.
I would say my least favorite part of the race was actually not my own. It was like seeing other people struggling. Like that was hard for me, especially we had a racer who got really motion sick, car sick. And like, I could tell they were just like in pain every time they got in the car and just like I don't know. That was tough for me. I'm like, wow, there are some people that are not having a good time right now.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be fun. It is of course going to be hard, but like it's supposed to be a fun thing. I think there were a couple of times it dipped into like this is just kind of survival mode, and so that wasn't great. But
Yeah.
What about you, baby?
Yeah. I think. Sorry, Emily. So when we got out of the car at the exchange spot where there was no cell service,
What car is this too?
it was.
This is a big car, the Chevrolet.
We were in the truck, and Emily let us get out because Holly was running, and it was gonna switch over to your guys' van, and we had this moment where it was like, okay, they're not picking up on the radio. Where is their car? Wes and I were talking. We thought that you guys had potentially gone to the wrong exchange, so we're looking around, but then we learned that the other car location, if they are there, is a half mile away. So I'm like, hey Wes, maybe you could run there. And then me and Wes were both thinking, well, hey, we might need to get back in the car with Emily to drive to the next exchange spot because we thought you guys might potentially be there. And I just have this moment where I turn around and Emily is driven off.
it just blows by.
And I'm like, how are we going to solve this problem? It's me and Wes, neither of which is it our turn to run. We have what I think I had the radio, and so Emily didn't have any way of communicating with anybody because she didn't have a radio, and we didn't know where. So I was just like, luckily it lasted about like 3 minutes because we turned around and your guys' car was there. But like imagining that if your car wasn't there, how we would have solved that situation. Like obviously Emily did end up turning around and that's how it would have been solved. But I didn't know that she was going to turn around. I thought that she by herself was maybe going to drive to the next location. So that was just like after a night of no sleep and like being like, where's the next runner? Holly finished. Where's their van? Oh, Emily's not here anymore.
Truck went by. You and I looked at each other like, what did you do?
So I did what Emily did earlier because I will call out like it probably wasn't the best how they labeled it in like our little booklet of like where the exchanges were. Is it said half a mile up the road is where there's like a parking lot where you can wait. And that I did that prior to you guys coming. It's really like not up the road. You have to make kind of a sharp right turn. And if you don't see it, you miss it. So I went past it, drove around, came back, and was like, where are we sitting? Like, where is this parking lot? And they're like, oh, it's that way, in the other direction. And there's like maybe 10 or 12 volunteers that are staged this half a mile that are yelling out like 661, and they're like passing it along. And so that's how we heard you guys were coming because we were parked in that where we were supposed to park. And we were there for like maybe 2 hours, like trying to sleep. And the woman, she yelled like 661, your people are here. So we're like scrambling in the car and we come down and we see you guys. And I was like, where's the truck? And you're like, it's not away. It's just like such a shit show. But
also,
that's awesome.
Also because of the rules, like there are a lot of rules. I don't know if we've covered that really yet, but it's a hefty rule book. And all the penalties seem pretty severe. Like there's a lot of like DQ offenses, and so I think that was on our minds the whole time. In hindsight, the enforceability was pretty weak. Like people weren't really enforcing those, which I think is the right move on a race that has so many variables. But like in that situation, I didn't want to get it. I couldn't get in a car that already had 5 people, so I just start like running with the runners.
Right.
Just jogging down the street like, oh, don't mind me. I'm just gonna wait to see if I can get out of view so I can hop in a car.
Right.
Like, those things are just silly.
Yeah. No, that was I'm glad it all worked out.
That was so funny.
It was.
And like, while we're waiting for we hear people that are pulling up and are like sitting in this parking lot, like this dirt lot, and we're there for 2 hours, and people that have just pulled in 15 minutes, 5 minutes, hear their numbers and leave, and we're just like, oh, when are they gonna get here? Because we're 2 hours is not enough to sleep, and it's like we're in that tiny ass car, and there's like all these blackberry bushes. So I'm like, oh, there's blackberries. Like we're just like shooting the shit, trying to keep each other like entertained. So when we heard your number 661, and the woman who was yelling at us like to go, she was like, finally, go. Get out of here.
Oh,
But yeah, it was pretty funny.
And for some reason, our radios didn't work.
So it was actually quite interesting because it was me and 3 other people at this point because we had to kind of do a little bit of a roster change halfway through. I heard like on the walkie-talkie, like not a word, but like a sound, and I was like, okay, I think they're trying to communicate with us. Me and Chelsea and I were like, the walkie-talkie's making noise, and so we kind of were like, okay, we should get our shit dialed. But we didn't hear like Conan 664. Like,
yeah, I called you like 10 times.
No.
Like,
and we tried to reply. We replied to you.
Yeah. No, I didn't hear
but we heard like the little noises that walkie-talkies make. I don't know if that's the right noise.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah. What was your favorite moment, Wes?
Oh man, I gotta say the start and into like basically everyone's first legs, like that whole section of the race, everyone was like beaming, and it's not just our group was, but also everyone in the race. There's this like happiness and high, and everyone's just like partying. It's like this like it's super cool, and I loved like at that first van exchange. I got to unfortunately, Hannah, you were running, so I didn't get to see you, but I got to pass your van, and they rolled the windows down. Everyone's just like yelling and screaming and like all smiles. It was just super cool. Yeah. High energy. We're jamming some tunes. We're also getting to know new people, which I thought was super fun. I didn't know almost anyone that you brought with you, and then a couple local people here too. Everyone was awesome. So that part was just fun. I love that.
Yeah. What about you, babe?
I think I had a couple of like spritzer moments where I was like, oh, this is cool. I thought it was really cool that there was one time because I was leg number 5 and you were leg number 6. I have a moment with each of you that I was like, this was special. So I was leg 5 and I was handing you like, we get this, like, it's like one of those things you slap on your wrist. It's like a bracelet and it has like a little circle that's like your safety GPS, just to make sure you're not like in the bushes off to like Wyoming in the wrong direction. But I remember I got to hand that to you and I gave you a kiss when I handed it to you. And the crowd was like, ew. But I just thought it was so cool. Like, how many people get to do this with their husband? Yeah. That was really cool. Like, kind of like, what a cool thing. And then, Wes, I was having like a philosophical discussion with you at one point in the smaller car overnight. And I was like, this is a great bonding moment. I don't remember what we were talking about, but I felt like we were philosophizing. We were on a good wavelength.
And I even mentioned Hannah got very philosophical as she lost sleep. It was cool. Honestly, of all the people that lost sleep, I think I enjoyed your kind of like less than fully firing brain. I think that was that lended to some good conversations.
It really did.
Reuben, I'm going to interrupt before you give your favorite. We had a bunch of badasses on our team on both sides, or like both fans. That was pretty cool to see people just like rip through. It almost seemed like the physical part of the race was tough, but like kind of a non-issue. And I thought that was really cool because there were other people that were mightily struggling like physically. So some insane athletes in the group.
Yeah. So part of the reason why I wanted to run it in the first place was it's a very unique race. Like, sure, there are other relay races, and I'm sure that other relay races are similar. But if you think about you like long distance running, you have like a marathon, or an ultra marathon or whatever, which is cool in and of itself, but it's very much like one person, right? Like you're running by yourself. Your goal is to do as best you can. Maybe you have friends along the way. And in and of itself, that marathon is very physically challenging just from like the amount of hours it's going to take, that sort of thing. And then you have something like, a 5K that's shorter, maybe it's more like a fun run, maybe it's just like more kind of for the vibes. But this was a combination of like, it's physically challenging. You're on a team. Plus there's like good like party. Hey, not everyone's taking this maximally seriously. You're out here to like have fun. And so I enjoyed that mix of, for everybody, it's pretty hard just because of the kind of logistical challenges we talked about. But you're sharing it with a team, and then everyone that you're around they're probably having a good time too. Like the amount of people that you passed and you're like, hey, good job. You like fist bump them or whatever. I thought that was awesome. So I would say that's probably my favorite part. And then also just the top of the mountain was so cool. When we were at one of our legs, if you look at like a graph of the elevation, it was like up pretty much straight up for the first 3/4 of it and then downhill for the last. The fact that like people all set up like atop of the mountain cheering spot. It was very like Tour de France. Again, like good crowd. Because most times that you ran by a crowd, it was a transition spot. But this time that you ran by a crowd, it was a massive crowd of people all cheering for you as you reached the top of the mountain and went back down.
Was this the toilet paper one?
Yeah, they set up like
I think we drove by that. I remember looking, like, I saw the wad of toilet paper and it was like my environmentalist heart. I'm like, what? No. But then I realized it was like, okay, I get it. It's a finish line thing.
That might have had multi-uses.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. That would not surprise me.
Also, just the fact that you saw a constant trickle of runners for 200 miles straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a sight to be seen. That is pretty crazy. Middle of the night, you see just people just flashing through it. It's wild. That's so many people.
Yeah.
There was at one point I was going up a hill because I don't know, it was my leg 11 maybe. It was like going into the night and it was like you just like I had a lot of hilly ones, which I asked for because I'm training for the 100K, but there was a time where I was looking up and all you could see were just like lights up the hill. I'm like, this is sick.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
But one thing I will add is like, I think as a team, like we fucking crushed it. Like we had, it's called when you pass someone, it's called a kill, which sounds horrible, but it's just like you pass someone. I think by the end of it, we had like 100 plus kills. We were an hour and a half about like ahead of schedule.
Which really means that we just sandbagged our estimated time so that we could pass a bunch of people during the race.
What does sandbag mean? Because it sounds like something else, so you got to clarify.
Sandbagging is like where you're not giving everything so that you can have an advantage later.
Okay.
So like if you're sandbagging a workout, like let's say that you're supposed to do like 12 200s and you're sandbagging, well, everyone knows that the last like 200s you're going to go as hard as you can. So if you're sandbagging, you're going easy for the first like 6 or 7, so that at the end you look like the guy who can like crush it even though you weren't going hard earlier.
So just also known as like reserving energy in the tank, or like reserve.
Yeah.
Or in this case, you say you're only going to run 9-minute miles when really you have the ability to run 8, so your seating is like messed up. So then when you get in, it's like, oh, look at me.
Got it.
I'm better than you expected.
I don't know. When you say sandbag, I go to teabag. So I just was asking.
That's
very different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
But also negative connotation. I wouldn't ever praise someone for teabagging someone, and I wouldn't ever praise someone for sandbagging
There
either.
you go.
I want to throw in a question. What is the holy shit, like in a raunchy way, thing you saw on the course? Because I feel like it was like the Wild West out there when you're running your
It
race.
was. Let's see.
I didn't really see anything.
I didn't see that much. I heard about you. Hannah, you might have to go on this one because I heard from you a couple of things that happened. So maybe you jump in here.
I mean, I don't know if it was like the legs that I got. I asked for the longest, hardest legs. Maybe that was it. But there was one guy when we were going up the hill, just like withering in pain, like my leg, my calves, just like full on like life existence in crisis mode, just like kind of like shrinking on the course. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then there was one person who, as we were kind of coming down, was just like projectile vomiting while coming down the mountain. And I'm like, that's impressive. But there was one person in front of me because one of the reasons why I was late to one of the transitions, I was waiting to go to the bathroom, and the line to the bathroom, what are they called? Porta potties, was backed up. And there was one guy who had completely, I think he went to the bathroom in his shorts because he smelled so bad, and he had an entire like baby wipes, gallon of water, towel, shorts, and he had like a black towel thing wrapped around his waist to kind of like cover it. But I mean, it happens to the best of us. But I was just kind of like, man, there really isn't anything off the table that could happen during this race, you know?
Yeah,
That's true.
Thankfully, I didn't really see much medical intervention. Like
I didn't
see
either.
people
That was
taken
good.
away in stretchers or like people really cut up like they fell. So that's good.
A fall on this course would suck because
Yeah.
the amount of miles that you are separated from people, like,
No cell reception.
yeah.
I almost fell a couple of times on my middle of the night run. I got a super hilly one where the road was terrible.
Oh.
Mm.
Horrible potholes, and yes, I had the headlamp, but like it was probably just user error. I wasn't really like looking right in front of me. I don't know, but
Yeah.
there are a few times where I stumbled because I just got caught in a like a little hole.
Yeah.
Dang.
Did you ever get delirious on your night runs? Like when you were running, did you?
Yes, a little bit. I found myself kind of zigzagging, like and maybe it was kind of fun, but like oh my gosh, I'm really not like staying in a line, am I? I probably ran extra miles. I don't know.
Probably. What about you, baby?
I think I was lucky. No, I wasn't really delirious. I don't think. Not during my runs.
Oh. When I was on the middle of the night one and I had like all the flashlights ahead of me,
Yeah.
I'm running on the highway. And so there's like, you can kind of glimpse, because I didn't have a headlight. I had like my really strong, like from my triathlon days, like my bike. I don't know why I'm doing this, but my bike light was on this part of my, on my backpack. And so it would make it enough where I could see part of the ground and part of the side of me, but it was constantly moving.
Yeah.
So I would like freak out and be like, there's something watching me from the other side of the mountain or like other side of the road. And then I'd look and there was nothing. But like I thought I saw things. With that.
Dang.
I definitely did on that same night long run. I got to a point where we went along the side of the river.
Ooh.
But before I knew that we were along the side of a river, I heard the river sound, and it sounded like there was something in the bushes that was ready to pounce on me. So that did give me a little start, like, oh, no.
Just running water.
Yeah, running water.
Okay, so next thing that we can go into is, do you want to do essential items we did and didn't have, or you think that's kind of...
It might be helpful. We could do something quick, because if people are listening to this and be like, oh, I want to do Hood to Coast next year, hopefully they can bookmark this, because I feel like this is a very transparent episode. So we don't have to spend a whole lot of time here, but I think it'd be worth being like, what are 3 things that you didn't have, Wesley, in your suitcase? It would have been like, oh.
Or that were either you didn't have, or that were like, hey, I was really glad I did have this.
Good.
Yeah. I actually think because of the other long races that I've done, I've kind of learned what I'm going to need, and thankfully it came through. Band-Aids for me. I got 2 blisters, and then of course the nips always need to be bandaged up for me. Yeah, that's a known issue. So those came into play, and it was funny. It was like each leg there's one more Band-Aid that was needed somewhere. So I had a bunch of them, so that was super, super helpful. Body Glide was super, super helpful. And then I actually didn't need them, but I was glad that they were in our presence. Was the baby wipes. I think that one's probably essential. Things can happen out there, and you need to be able to get cleaned up. So that would be my 3rd.
Yeah.
I got nothing. What you got, babe?
You got nothing?
Just 2 legs. That's all I need.
I will echo US on the baby wipes, not just from a poop thing or wipe thing, more of you're going to do these legs and you're going to sit in the car and there's not any showers available. And so it was really nice. I brought my surf whoopee thing. So I put this, it looks like a huge poncho. I put that on. I took a baby wipe, just wipe myself down. And it was kind of like a nice refresh. Mm-hmm. So that was crucial. So baby wipes, just not for the bathroom, but just for self-sanitization. Electrolytes. I don't know. I get very dehydrated very quickly, regardless if it's day or night. So that was a huge thing for me, especially sitting in the car after running. I was more prone to cramping. And then there's so many. It depends. If this race is going to be your A race, which means you're training for this race, I think you're fine. But I think if this race is your B race, Rusty, you have an Ironman in 2 months. I have a 100K. Use things you're going to use as a practice mechanism for your A race. So I wore my backpack, running pack that I was going to wear on my race. I used the same gels I was going to use on my race because you're running through the night. So leverage that as how can I learn? How can I put myself out there? What can I take away from this? So really leverage the concept. This is your B race as a really great time to practice some of the tools you're going to use for your A race.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Second pair of shoes. we were packing, and you were like, "You gonna bring a second pair of shoes?" I was like, "Nah, I feel like you don't need them." And 3/4 of the way through my first leg, I just get absolutely drenched, and I'm like, "Well, I got 1 pair of shoes for our next 3 legs."
And they never dried out, right?
No, no.
You
It got close. We were able to stop at Holly and Maddie's place and use a hair dryer on them.
Oh.
So it was like they were damp, but they were still like heavier than I wanted them to be. So yeah, second pair of shoes. Just why not? It's
Yeah.
Oregon. It's gonna rain at some point. Yeah.
that was one of the most impressive rain showers, if you can even call it a shower, I've ever seen. It was a wall of water coming down.
I put that as my second most favorite moment of the race, when it was just like sprinkle, 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 and then raining so hard that I had to turn my cap around because I was getting blasted in the face with water so hard.
Aw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Good
was
one.
funny.
What's our next question, baby?
I think we're ready for would you run it again, and under what circumstances would you run it again?
Okay, 100% yes, I would run it again. I would definitely want it to be a different experience than this time. I thought this was actually, in hindsight, I thought it was a really cool first run because everyone was doing it for the first time. No one had any experience. It was like all of us were in there kind of like trying to figure it out together. It was like an extra challenge. We did a couple of things like that weren't ideal. Like the car was a little tight. We had less people than maybe it would have been nice to have. So next time I do it, I think I want to try almost like the luxury experience. Like I know it's never going to be super luxury, but like 12 people, big ass vans that you can actually sleep in, and like plan out times to go rest at houses. Like that was, I know, sorry Hannah, you didn't get to do that. Man, when we got a shower at Holly's place
Oh,
and
wow.
like ate our like refueling dinner and watched The Office, I mean, that was pretty sweet. So we had like 2 hours of just like downtime. So if you can incorporate that, it just gave you like just a little bit of extra oomph going back in the van and like finishing out the race. That was right before you lose cell reception and everything. So it was like
Yeah.
a last taste of reality, and then you're in the trenches. But yes, I want to do it again. I want to do it that way, and I want to make sure that the entire like this was perfect because I think everyone in the vans were pretty much had kind of a common goal. I want to keep that like everyone. If it's a more chill race, everyone's chill. If it's a more aggressive race, everyone's aggressive. But like I think everyone having a collective kind of this is how we're gonna run it. I think that's how I would do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I'm right with you, Wes. I would do it again. I think honestly, the only two things that I would be like, yes, we definitely want is 12 people and a van that's actually a van. I think if you do those things,
Yeah.
all of the things that were like challenging or like threw us off basically go away. So I think do it again, just 12 people and two actual vans. And then the logistics are not nearly as crazy. You don't have to be like referencing the guide that we had, like going back and forth of like, oh, well, it's supposed to be this person, but it's going to be this person instead. Like, I think that makes it so much simpler. And now that we've done it once, like there's just things that we understand, like the fact that like the transition areas get so backed up. We just know that going in, and we can like let people out of the van if they need to. We can, just make it simpler. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm probably at a 50%. I would do it again if a couple things. I think from the planning perspective, it was quite stressful because if there are certain rules in place, if you have one person or maybe two people, you have to, from Oregon, you're required to find 3 volunteers. That was one of the things. Was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Then I would do like from that perspective of not having to plan stuff, I'd be down because like logistically, cost associated, team associated, getting people onboarded to like the portal that we were at, giving them the full spiel. So if that was all done, I was just like, I'm in, and that was off the table. That's a huge pro. The second thing would be the cars. We both talked about this. I don't know about you guys. I saw vans. There was one leg where they had their door open. They had a kitchen. They had a bathroom. They had like a bed option where you could lay. And we were so focused on following the rule book where it was like your car can only be this long and this wide. And so that meant a lot of the vans, even if they were available, were not solid options. Because you're thinking of like a minivan when you think of a van. These people had like we're talking the Mercedes Sprinter, like huge, like bougie ass vans, like just decorated, and they were sleeping, and they were having full meals. It was just a very different experience. So knowing that rule now is kind of more of a blurred line than like a strong rule. I'd go with that sort of like the vans, the big ass bougie vans, and then the 12 people for sure. Just because it allows more time to rest, more time to reset. I'm always down for doing something difficult. I think the lack of sleep made it like, because this was a B race and not an A race, you felt more of hood to coast after the race than you necessarily needed to. Like, I don't know how long it took you, Wes, to recover from no sleep.
I was so lucky. I mean, I slept so hard that I felt okay the next day. I think I did like 12 hours of just
wow.
I was out. It was actually probably the hardest I've ever slept in my life. I didn't know what happened.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah.
I got you. So yeah, my answer is 50%. If it's planned, if we've got the cars, if we've got the people, and I just am a runner that's just running to be part of the team, I'm down. But unless those three things are in place, probably not.
I'm gonna add guaranteed hacky sack time at some point.
Yeah, we need
I'm
that.
pretty disappointed that we didn't get out and sack it around.
We did like half a game before we started, but yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah. I don't think anyone played any games. I will say the only one rule that if you are planning to do hood to coast, the rule book is quite intense, and they are sticklers about parking your cars or being unsafe. I think the biggest thing is safety. If you're doing something that's not safe for a runner, so if you're driving alongside a runner and you're lingering and it's legal, you're gonna get in trouble for that. But like, are they going around to each car and measuring the car length? No. Are they looking in your car to make sure you have the people that you said you had? No. The biggest thing is the safety. So the running and then not sleeping by your car. If you don't do those two things, you probably could be just fine. But still, very fun, kick-ass medal, super groovy.
I think our team was awesome.
Our team was awesome. Okay, do you want to segue to rapid fire questions?
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, Wesley, and then I'm going to ask you, babe, okay?
Okay.
Wesley Jean, what is one thing that you're excited or looking forward to in 2024?
Oh man, you alluded to it earlier. I am so excited for my Ironman in 2024. Sacramento, October 27th. This will be a fourth attempt to get this thing done, and I'm looking forward to it being over. But yeah. Excited for the event.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fourth attempt. How come? Why 4?
I started training in 2019 for a 2020 race. Everyone knows how those went. So that one got canceled. They rescheduled it. That one got canceled. Still COVID-y. The third time I was on the start line in Sacramento, and you guys were there. There was a big monsoon that canceled the race day of. And so we're going back to the scene of the crime. That one. It'll be a fourth time.
We'll be there.
Yeah. 29. So what's really crazy is I started training for this right before I met my now wife. And so it's been 5 years that she's been hearing me talk about this thing and training for this thing. And it's just never happened. So yeah, for her sake, I hope it gets done.
I'm proud of you. 5 years training for something is damn. All right, I like it. What about you, babe? Exciting thing in 2024 that hasn't happened yet.
I didn't really prep for this. I don't know what I'm looking forward to.
Getting on your toes, you know what I'm saying? Getting them on the toes.
There's a lot of like small things, but there isn't like one like.
Okay,
yeah.
What's one small thing that's like, this is gonna be really cool?
I don't know. I gotta say, going cheering you on, Wes.
Yeah.
Something I'm looking forward to.
That will be cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be awesome. Yeah. What about you, babe? What's one thing you're looking forward to in 2024?
I'm excited to cheer you on, Wesley. I'm excited to tackle this 100K. I think I've been thinking about it for the last 7 months. So I can't imagine, Wes, you for 5 years. I'm excited. I'm a little bit burnt. I think we chatted about this before we hit record, but I'm like on marathon plus distance for my long runs on Saturdays in the trail. I think I just did number 7 number 6 of this training block. So my body is feeling it, and I'm ready. I'm ready to have a little bit of time back. I think this has taught me a lot, but I'm excited to get my ass on that start line and then just demolish the course and get some time back so I can spend it with you, and then go west and go see you, Sacramento. So that's one thing.
Do you have any piece of you that wants to be on the start line in Sacramento as well?
No. I don't know. We raced together for that half Ironman. Yeah, fun fact, guys, when I did my half Ironman, it was Wes was racing it with me.
Oh, yeah.
Wes was my source of information that things weren't going so hot for you.
That I don't know. Someone else asked me like, "Oh, you did a half. You're going to do a full," and I think just the bike mechanic, like you trust your transportation. One of the ways to finish the race relies on you having a bike. And when shit hits the fan, like, I don't know, 2 popped tires in one go, it really just, all the prep work that you could do, all of the planning goes out the window because if your bike's not working, you cannot go forward. Like I was running, but that's not like with my bike in hand, like along. But I don't like that. I did not like that.
So when you think full Ironman, do you think 4 flat tires?
I think of a sore crotch and a lot of time on my bike, which I'm not really down to. Yeah, I'm not really down for it. But last question. You ready, Wesley?
Yes.
What are 3 things that you're grateful for?
Oh, man. I am grateful for my family. I can actually see 2 of them sleeping right here, right now. I love them to death. Grateful for good friends like you 2. It's so awesome to see you recently, and Reuben, get to see you again soon.
Yeah.
So grateful for that time. And man, right now during this training time, I am grateful for good food. Nothing tastes better than great food after you work really, really hard.
Yeah, because what did you do today for your Ironman training?
Yesterday I did a 65-mile bike, 4 hours. Today was a 2-hour run. And man, that breakfast hit hard when I got done. It was awesome.
Yeah, because you had your traditional brunch.
Yes.
Right. So what'd you have?
Brunch. I had it's this dish called dat hash though. And it's at a local place that makes really good food. It's just like it's a hash, like potatoes and vegetables and all sorts of breakfast things all mixed together, eggs. That's really good.
Oh wow.
Also, shout out to my dog Arlo, who ran his first half marathon today.
Aww.
He ran with you the entire time?
The whole thing. He needed to take a couple of breaks. He was struggling. He looked at me a couple of times like, what are we still doing out here? He got it done. Yeah. He has been sleeping ever since we got back.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, baby, what about you? What are 3 things that you're grateful for?
Okay, so similar to Wesley, I would say the people in my life that I'm very grateful for. So you, Wesley, my family, just all the people that I get to spend time with, that I get to chat on the phone with, that get to do Hood to Coast with. I think that is something that every day I'm very grateful for. Just awesome people in my life. Secondly, I am very grateful to be living in Southern California, where it's sunny and good weather, and get to be by the beach and get to go to the mountains. It's a very unique place, so I'm very grateful for that. And then last thing that I'm grateful for is the last time that I was on the podcast, I said my body. So this time I'll say grateful for my mind. Just in terms of like my curiosity and my desire to learn and my ability to learn. Like, I don't know. I think that it's sometimes maybe taken for granted, just like each of our brains and what we can do. So
yeah.
Great one.
What are 3 things you're grateful for?
I'm very grateful that while I put myself in uncomfortable situations, and like whether that's training or whatever, and uncomfortable spots, whilst it is a little bit of a struggle, I'm very thankful that I have the perseverance. So like 26 miles yesterday on the trail, my feet are swollen. I'm hungry as shit. There isn't water. I didn't calculate that right. Just like having the strength and reinforcement to kind of like talk to myself, like, hey, focus, just get your ass to the aids. Like being able to snap back and like persevere. I'm very thankful for rather than quit, because I'm not a quitter. I'm very thankful that my body is able to do what I'm asking it to do. I think it's being pushed to a level that I haven't pushed it before. And with that, the mind that comes with that as well, when you start on the trail and it's like, I got 26 miles, and it's like, how do you digest that when you're by yourself in the mountains? That's a long time, especially right now for the race that I'm training for. It's you walk the inclines, you run the straights, and you run the downhills, just because the elevation and the altitude of where I'm going to be training, you have to really learn how to conserve. And so I asked for a challenge where I could learn how to endure for longer. And this challenge is definitely hitting that goal that I set out for. And then third is the people in my life. I think I'm very, very blessed, Wesley, to have you as a friend and have you as a husband, and have our circle of friends be so supportive and communicative and caring and curious what we're up to and wanting to make sure we're okay and just love on us. I think not everyone has that. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this concludes the episode, y'all. We did it.
Good job, guys.
All right.